episode of the ohmTown Daily News Show. I'm Mayor Watt. That's my site. That's ohmTown.com. Go check it out. It's a news aggregation site where a bunch of articles are thrown into 6 categories. You see them scrolling across the top there. I've said it countless times now. Actually, I can count it because I've said it at least 139 times. Let's get into today's news. So, there's so much news that I want to talk about, but I only select max 20 articles per episode because we only have an hour of time together. So I encourage you to go over to ohmTown.com. There's a bunch of news. There isn't a lot of fluff. Maybe that's not the right term. There's not a lot of stuff that doesn't come from news sources. So there isn't anything that is like user submitted and whatnot. I do have an apparatus in place for user submitted information, but it's harder to categorize. So maybe if the site gets some attention and people find it useful, I'll unlock it. But at this point, I use it for news aggregation for me, and by proxy, I've allowed it open to everybody else. It's really for me, but I think a lot of people find value in it. I do have a bunch of users on the site, but they're largely just consuming the news. If they were spammers, there would be a bunch of spam on the site, but there isn't any spam on the site. So I thought, maybe they're spammers, but it's just not happening. So go over to ohmTown.com, give it a look-see, and let me know what you think of it. In the meantime, this article right here at the top, it says median pay of top CEOs hits record 14.7 million as workers strike over starvation wages. That pretty much summarizes the last 24 hours. But it isn't the article that I selected for today. Instead, I've got 20 articles that I've grabbed throughout the day, and let's talk about it real quick. The very first article is TikTok users can now credit specific videos to make sure viral creators get their due. This has kind of been a long-term thing for me, in that people take other people's work but don't necessarily give credit. And when you are in academia, it's considered plagiarism to take other people's work and not give credit. Even if at the end of the day, what you're arguing is your own perspective, it's still referencing somebody else's perspective. And that's kind of how the ohmTown Daily News Show works. And all of the shows will work when I bring them to Twitch and or YouTube. And that is, if I'm making a mention of some article, then I will have the source. So that's why I do things the way that I do things, so that credit can be given where credit is due. That said, I think that this is great, but TikTok is kind of, I think their video length now is something like 10 minutes, but it's usually dramatically shorter and very kind of pithy, kind of small micro statements. And so paying attention to the credit is going to be difficult to begin with, in my interpretation, my observation of TikTok, and the user base. They're not there to look at who deserves credit, but I'm glad that TikTok is doing it. It says here, when uploading content, users will be able to tag not only the individual creators in video descriptions, but also specific videos. In addition to the platform's claims, will, quote, better enable creator credit and equitable attribution for our creator community and content originators. Brilliant. Wonderful. Thank you very much for doing this. I wasn't involved in this in any way, shape, or form, but I would just want to say that this is great, because now it gives more motivation to others to facilitate this. And if it's as simple as tagging something, it's been done on many other sites. prior to TikTok. So to maintain that credibility and competition there, it's a good thing that TikTok has done this. So it says the change is in part a response to complaints by users that the platform thrives off a parasitic approach to viral content. Last summer, for example, a number of black dance creators went on strike from the app, noting how many viral dancers didn't get credit. So this is an article that's over at The Verge. It's written by James Vincent. And it says TikTok says it wants to foster a culture of credit. So I think that this should be an ongoing trend. Really, what's going to end up happening, though, is unless the credit is given in a way where it drives traffic to the creator, you're really doing a half step. And if you go over to ohmTown.com, for instance, what my aggregator does is it takes the publicly accessible information. I don't do screen scraping. It grabs the headline, it grabs a short snippet of the article. It doesn't take the whole thing, and I link back to the source. And therein, really, and I don't take the artwork, I don't republish the artwork. I think that if you want a full understanding of something, you can't just take somebody else's word for it. So while I'm talking about it, I may be adding a little bit of my perspective, my value to it. But I want you to go over and read for the minutia. Now, the idea here is that maybe out of my 20, 2 or 3 articles really pique your interest. And so you follow the link from the show notes over to that article. And I'm not expecting you to love everything that I talk about. But out of the 20, maybe, and out of the 15, maybe a couple. However many you find value, as long as you listen to what I say and you say, hey, wow, that's a really interesting take on it. Let me go read some more about it. And you can use me as a filter for some news. And maybe you'll find something of interest that I talk about. But then come back to ohmTown here on Twitch and chat with me about it. That would be really great. So if you're in my chat, say hello, and be sure to follow, because we all have aspirations. I would love to be able to do this more often, longer than an hour a day. I'm actually going to be giving it a try. I was hoping to do it starting this week, but it's probably going to be next week. It really depends on if I can close the books on a couple of projects that are keeping me from spending much more time here on Twitch. And I might actually stream a little bit over on YouTube. It really depends on what shakes out from the discussions that are going on with Twitch. We really don't know what those rumors are going to amount to. None of it really impacts me right now, but I would like to know what I'm getting into. That said, I really love real-time interaction, but there are always options. So you can watch this video over on YouTube, or you can watch it or download it as a podcast. And feel free to come back. Unfortunately, my schedule has been really wonky, and that's really put a damper on things. But I'm trying to get back into the 11 o'clock structure. Odds on, I think it's going to end up being 1 o'clock based on everything that's happening. But I don't like bouncing times around. It makes people get a little cranky. And so let's see if I can avoid that. Okay. That said, I'm going to go on to the next article. And that's in the Mobile channel. New strategies to save the world's most indispensable grain. It says plants. They're just like us, with unique techniques for handling stress. To save one of the most important crops on Earth from extreme climate swings, scientists are mapping out plants' own stress-busting strategies. Let's follow this link. It takes us over to phys.org, and Jules Bernstein, University of California, Riverside, wrote this article here. And I'm not sure what plant that is. It might be rice. Yeah, okay. So it says rice plant submerged as part of the long-running investigation into root response. So we largely, you don't need to flood rice crops, but it keeps bugs out. So um, many bugs that would attack it. And it's hardy enough to survive in a swampland kind of environment. It says here a UC Riverside led team has learned what happens to the roots of rice plants when they're confronted with two types of stressful scenarios: too much water, too little water. These observations form the basis of new protective strategies. This one crop is the major source of calories for up to 45% of humanity, but its harvests are in danger, says Julia Bailey Serres, UCR geneticist and study lead. In the U.S., floods rival droughts in terms of damage to farmers' crops each year. All right. So they're investigating what happens to these roots. See, I do hydroponics, so I get to see these kind of roots all the time, just dangling down in some water, and it's fascinating to watch the plants grow. And so I try to avoid soil, but then it's a different type of thing, right? I actually have some soil. Coconut coir is what I use. And so not real soil per se. And it's kind of pretty simple. The only thing you have to really watch out for is too much moisture, and that turns into mold. So you can grow your own crops, microgreens, and other things in your basement or in your living room. I mean, it really doesn't matter. It depends on how many animals you have and what your significant other might think of it if you have one. But anyway, it says suberin is a lipid molecule that helps any water drawn up by the roots make it to the shoots and helps oxygen from the shoots reach the roots. Bailey Series said, if we reinforce the plant's ability to create suberin, rice has better chances for survival in all kinds of weather. So this is going to bend people in all kinds of different directions, because while the idea is to make these strains stronger and more capable in adverse situations, nobody really wants genetically modified anything, right? In an ideal world, we wouldn't have anything genetically modified. But that's just not the nature of the reality of what our population needs. So we need to be able to protect the food sources from weather and whatnot. And science is where it's at, because natural selection is falling short of making it happen in a density required for humans. But that could change. I mean, it all depends on population and population concentration and demand. So, you can't prove the negative. So let's see what happens as we investigate plants and their genetics to see if we can make them stronger, more resistant to fail. Okay, let's go on to the next article. Satellite monitoring of biodiversity moves within reach. This is over in the Mobile channel. Global biodiversity assessments require the collection of data on changes in plant biodiversity on an ongoing basis. Researchers from the universities of Zurich and Montreal have now shown that plant communities can be reliably monitored using imaging spectroscopy, which in the future will be possible via satellite. So we monitor biodiversity to some degree as it stands now. Maybe not to the fullest extent of what biodiversity truly means, but we monitor flora and fauna using satellite monitoring. It's expensive, but it can be done. says internationally comparable data on biodiversity is needed to protect threatened ecosystems, restore destroyed habitats, and counteract the negative effects of global biodiversity loss. Current biodiversity monitoring, however, is labor intensive and costly. In addition, many places around the world are difficult to access. That's quite understated. So, Anna Schweiger from the Remote Sensing Laboratories at the Department of Geography, University of Zurich, and Etienne La Liberté from the University of Montreal have now shown that plant biodiversity across ecosystems ranging from Arctic tundra to tropical forests can be reliably assessed using image spectrometry. Wait, hold on a second. Image spectrometry. Sorry, I'm scrolling to try and find something. Yeah, it says up here using imaging spectroscopy. And down here it says spectrometry. Okay. There is a difference between the two. Okay. I'm going to, let me just move on from this. It says imaging spectrometers measure the reflectance of light from the visible to the shortwave infrared range of the electromagnetic spectrum. The reflectance of plants is determined by their chemical, anatomical, and morphological characteristics, which are important for interactions among plants with their environment. So think of this basically as the same way that we look at light coming from a star and we can figure out what the star is made of. We can do the same thing with the light that's being emitted from the reflections of our sun. So we basically cancel out we look for what the average of our sun is. We can remove that from the reflection and we can actually see what our plants are based on the minutia of the reflections and see how many of X plant is sitting there. Using the reflected light to assess the characteristics of individual plants and plant communities is really what's going on, like it says here in the article. And that'll be really interesting. We look back at ourselves and make sure that we have enough biodiversity, or perhaps we watch in slow motion the extinction of biodiversity. Although biodiversity can't really go extinct. It can tell us what goes extinct, though. Okay, let's continue on to the next article. It's over on the Stock Marketeers channel under Nerd Wallet. That's the section on MarketWatch that has this article. Is a graduate degree worth it? Fewer employers are requiring them. Here are the pros and cons. It says more college students than ever hold advanced degrees today, but in a tight labor market, employers aren't requiring graduate degrees as often. No, that's true. This is an article over at MarketWatch under the section called Nerd Wallet, and it's written by Anna Helhosky. Consider whether advanced degrees are worth taking on debt. And that's kind of the real deal here. And the way that I say it to people is if you are looking for an entry-level position and you're not seeking a faster track to mid-management, get an associate's degree. It shows an employer that you have the tenacity for dedicating 2 years of time to complete a long-term project. Wonderful. If you want to continue on and be right out of the gate supported with a 4-year degree, and depending on where you go, it helps you build critical thinking skills, do fundamental research, you write more papers, you become a better speaker, you become a better writer. If you engage in that kind of stuff when you're in a 4-year college. and it facilitates networking. Continue on and get a bachelor's, and you'll move up the ranks. It will add to um, your options, and it'll increase. Typically, it increases the amount of salary that you will receive. If you are in a position somewhere and you are boots on the ground and you want to be management, then you'll want a master's degree. And uh, therein, it becomes a little more technical. It becomes a little more theoretical. It pushes the envelope of your knowledge and understanding by having you do typically a thesis of some kind. And so you start writing even more. Now, if you want to write a book, if you want to be senior leadership, if you want to uh, speak about the topic as a subject matter expert, and the field that you are talking about really appreciates the whole doctorate, PhD, then you'll want to pursue a doctorate or a PhD. And there's difference there. PhD, you're going to end up doing fundamental research, and it's not as applied as a doctorate is. And if you are already in senior leadership in an enterprise, wherever it might be, you can leverage that connection to kind of push the envelope of your particular domain and understanding, and thus the theory is that you will benefit your enterprise at the same time. So maybe your business will pay for it. Who knows? But it can be pretty expensive. Is it worth going into debt? Depends. There are stories of people who, and I have been told this, that the moment that they got their law degree, the law firm that hired them paid off their student loans because they knew that the person was going to get hired and was good enough of an investment to make them not have to worry about it. So they paid off the debt, and then they were going to recover that in uh, multiples of benefit. So the article says that it's reprinted from NerdWallet. This was just aggregated by my news aggregator. So just full disclosure, I have no connection with MarketWatch or NerdWallet or anyone involved. And it says advanced degrees could hedge against a recession, and not if you have to pay your student loans back. It's actually probably going to lead you into a little bit more financial straits because the loan manager is going to start raising interest rates if they're not paid off. So it says during the 2007-2009 recession, those with bachelor's degrees and higher were more likely to keep their jobs, according to 2014 research by the Georgetown University Center on Education and the Workforce. The same goes for job retention during the early days of the pandemic, according to June 2020 data from the Federal Reserve Bank of San Francisco. Graduate programs don't always pay off. What consumers need is data that show program-specific outcomes like graduates' employment rates and average salaries. Now, really, that has to do with the college, the region, the domain, so much minutia that it's really hard to correlate a college with their employment rate, only because it's a combination, it's a cacophony of reasons why somebody wouldn't be able, or a school wouldn't necessarily be representative of who gets hired. But a lot of it has to go to social networking within the enterprise, the school. You hear a lot of people about Harvard and Yale and Ivy League schools, but that's because there's a lot of affluent people there. They're very intelligent there to begin with, and this networking breeds the ability to find some positive outcome on the other side, whereas smaller schools and less connected schools don't have that regimen of historical networking where one Yaley will hire another Yaley simply because they went to Yale. And that happens. And people find it easier to risk their wealth by investing with somebody that they say, I went to school with that person, or they're coming from this school or that school. But there's a lot more to it. So you have to determine for yourself if you think that you're going to be able to recover from spending $100,000+ on a master's program, let alone a PhD, which is over and above that. So it says here, an estimated 40% of master's degree programs do not pay off at all, according to February 2022 data from the Foundation for Research on Equal Opportunity, which is a nonprofit think tank. The uncertainty means prospective students will need to do some legwork to prevent graduate school from harming their finances more than it helps their employment prospects. So you'll have to do some due diligence. And if you want to read more about it, then go over to this article on MarketWatch, and it's in the show notes. So go check it out. The next article is in the Hatch Ideas channel. Tesla whale calls for $15 billion stock buyback after share price craters. So I didn't do this beforehand, but let's see. So Tesla is at $709.42 in the intraday chart. Year over year, let's see. Year to date, it's down $490. And this, what they're referring to as a whale, is basically a person with a lot of money. So let's click the link. It'll take us over to CNBC. And this is something that I said maybe a couple of days ago. I don't remember which day it was. But I said that the machinations, I'll correct myself one of these days. The machinations of what is, going on between Twitter and SpaceX and Tesla and Elon Musk's leverage buyout of Twitter. The moment that the stock started to take a tumble, I knew what I had predicted would happen was happening, which was with the stock collapsing, Tesla or somebody else could buy back, billions of dollars worth of stock at a suppressed rate. And then if this Twitter deal collapses, even if they were to lose $1 billion, if Elon Musk was to lose $1 billion on the Twitter buyout, the stock would recover and completely eclipse the losses made by the Twitter failure to buy, right? Failure to launch. So a $15 billion buyback of the stock, let alone individual investors buying at this reduced rate, means that there's more on the upside for people with money. But all of the people who invested in Tesla prior to it being valued at $709, they're going to lose their shirt if they've invested higher at a higher valuation. Mainly because the stock plummeted. But the reason why the stock plummeted is because of the way that all of this went down. And everybody is a little, they're on unsure footing because they don't know what's going to happen next, because none of this is being done in the way that it would normally be done, which is public disclosures and not surreptitious discovery that suddenly somebody is a 15% owner or 10% owner. and no public discourse about the integrity of Twitter, et cetera, et cetera. I mean, there's so many things that are being discussed about it that, of course, people are wondering what the heck is going on. And so the stocks are all taking a tumble because there's a lot of risk for everybody else. And those that have the ability to bow out and make $1 billion are going to bow out and make $1 billion and mitigate their risk. So it says in a tweet to Martin Vika, I guess, Tesla's senior director of investor relations, Koguin said the company should immediately announce its plans to buy back 5 billion of Tesla shares this year and 10 billion next year. He added that Tesla should use its free cash flow to fund the buyback and that it shouldn't affect its existing 18 billion cash reserves. No, it will. But at any rate, the idea of this is it's something that I pretty much, not necessarily the means by which this person is saying that the stock buyback should happen, but I predicted that this is what would happen, and it would suppress SpaceX, it would suppress Tesla, and it would suppress Twitter, and it would suppress everything that's being leveraged. So let's take a look at something here. So yeah, let me look at Twitter. So even Twitter, see, now that there is some question about the integrity of Twitter, it has reduced itself back down to the pre April price. So people were buying on the hype, the stock was rising up, and now it's back down to its normal pre disclose or pre-discovery that Musk was involved in Twitter. So this is no surprise to me. And I think that what's going to happen is Twitter is going to go down further if this deal does not go through, simply because now there's a real question about the number of bots and the integrity of the user base, and that it's wishy-washy. So we'll see what happens with Twitter, let alone Tesla and SpaceX. SpaceX is private, though. So let's continue on. The next article is over in Hatch Ideas. Billionaire founder of crypto exchange Binance says he's quote unquote poor again after its Luna holdings, once worth $1.6 billion, crashed and is now worth $2,200. So crypto exchange Binance founder Changpeng Zhao tweeted poor again after crypto token Luna crashed. Binance holdings of the coin were once worth $1.6 billion, but are now worth about $2,200, according to Bloomberg estimates. Zhao is still a billionaire, and Binance is the world's largest crypto exchange. We'll click that link. And did I say who the last article? So the last article about Tesla whale calling for $15 billion stock buyback, that was by Sam Shed. Shead. So I hope I'm pronouncing it properly, Sam. Let me know if I'm not. In this next article, the one about the billionaire founder of crypto exchange Binance, that is over at businessinsider.com by Weilun Soon. And yeah, a billionaire saying that they're poor again is just so disconnected from reality. It just goes without saying. Zhao did not immediately respond to insider requests for comment. Sure. Binance's Luna holdings were worth 1.6 trillion, and the coin traded at about 0.000146 on Thursday. Pardon me, today. So I try to keep my news within the last 24 hours. But a billionaire saying that they're poor again. I don't know. Maybe they were leveraged to the point where they actually are poor again, quote unquote, poor again. The next article is in the Word in Tech. Supply chain crisis complicates fixing baby formula shortage. Experts say the critical shortage of baby formula across the United States is being exacerbated by many of the same issues implicated in the global supply chain crisis borne by the coronavirus pandemic, says Virginia Tech industrial packaging and shipping expert. Let's click this link. Takes us over to phys.org. Quote, the challenge with any major change, such as increasing the production of baby formula, is that the supply chain is already strained, said Laszlo Horvath, director of Virginia Tech's Center for Packaging and Unit Load Design. This article is actually written by, and there's no name on it, it just says Virginia Tech. It is also hard to get any trucks on the road because shipping companies are running at full capacity too. So it makes you wonder what's going on. Full capacity, yet we have all of these claims that there isn't anybody working and supply chain is broken and so many other things. So what really is going on here that suddenly we have baby formula issues, and then we have people in our in our government. It's because it's everybody, and it's not really everybody. It's only a select few people that are insane that are suddenly saying that we shouldn't help out anybody who needs baby formula, and we absolutely should. We're talking about the very things that everybody is up in arms about, and you can't sit there and say down with Roe v. Wade and then say screw you, you can't have any baby formula. You painted yourself into this corner because you don't know global finance and supply chain management, and you don't come with a silver spoon born in your mouth, so screw you. That's just not how society works. But there are select few people that are antisocial. They are empowered beyond what they should be empowered with. There's too much concentrated wealth and power. And these numbnuts are deciding the fate of everybody in society, not just themselves, not just their cohort, not just their constituents, but everybody. And it's without any empathy, sympathy, compassion, understanding. They don't come from it. And if they do come from it, they don't come from it from an angle where it's stuck because they're sociopathic. It's my opinion. Okay, I got to get off my soapbox. But supply chain issues are continuing to impact baby formula, and we do have a means of resolving it, mitigating the damage that this is going to cause. And the people that can afford to mitigate it on their own are doing it, but there are people that can't afford it. So is this all about socioeconomic gatekeeping and filtering based on wealth? Or are these human beings that need assistance, and therefore we help them because we are all part of society? You give and you take. You don't just keep taking. Sometimes people have to take for a long term, but if you have the means to give, give. Okay, let me continue on. Come on, Merwatt, keep it together. Okay, so this next article is over in the Stock Marketeers channel, Economic Report, U.S. U.S. unemployment claims. Let me rephrase this. Let me start this over. It's an economic report. It comes from MarketWatch.com, and it's titled U.S. Unemployment Claims Rise to 4-Month High of 218,000. So new U.S. jobless claims rose to a 4-month high of 218,000 last week, but most of the increase appeared tied to just a few states such as Kentucky and California. Yeah, that's not just a few states. That's only 2 states. So maybe the article has more. Most of the increase in jobless claims took place in just a few states, but economists are watching for signs of rising layoffs. Jobs are easy to find, but rumblings about recession could make it harder. Yeah, I don't think jobs are easy to find. How about jobs that actually give you at least some level of future and that you're not just enslaved to show up? You have to travel for 2 hours to the job, show up for 6 hours, not get benefits, not get paid time off when you are sick, et cetera, et cetera. Everything that is American employment, and then have to drive 2 hours back, and you don't get paid for those 4 hours, leaving you only 4 hours to exist so that you can get 8 hours of sleep, which is what everybody demands of you. You really should get 8 hours of sleep. Most of us don't get 8 hours of sleep. We get maybe 5. Why? Because we have to work. We have to work for somebody else, pay their mortgage, because you can only rent nowadays. You can't buy, and even renting is outrageously priced. As they used to say back in the day, the rent is too damn high. So the numbers: new US jobless claims rose to a 4-month high of 218,000. Applications for unemployment benefits climbed by 21,000 from 197,000 in the prior week. Economists polled economists polled by the Wall Street Journal forecast initial jobless claims to total 200,000, so they're off a little bit. Big picture, the labor market is still extremely strong. Job openings are at record highs. They're at record highs because they're not paying enough. They're not respecting the worker enough. It isn't job openings are high and there's all kinds of opportunity. The Great Resignation is built on the fact that people aren't getting paid a livable wage. Yet we're being told to question education. That's not how it works. More education gives you more opportunities, but there's a lot of jobs opening because people are actually realizing that they're a little more powerful than they thought they were. That's why unions are forming. That's why people are not going to whatever job is out there. It's because people realize now that they're the gears, they're the reason why the business works. Execution on a large business is nothing if you can't get anybody to execute it. You have to have employees and you have to respect them. Anyway, so key details. Raw or unadjusted jobless claims rose fivefold in Kentucky and also increased notably in California, yet most states showed little change and more than half reported declines. The number of people already collecting unemployment benefits, meanwhile, fell by 25,000 to 1.32 million. So, just to be clear, these are new claims, and the ones that have already been collecting unemployment fell by 25,000, only 25,000, to 1.32 million in the week ending May 7th. And it says that's the lowest level since 1969. Yeah, people aren't going to risk their job during a recession, during a pandemic. Everybody's idling. Some people are leaving, but they're not applying for unemployment. They've got a job lined up or they're retiring. So let's continue on to the next article. This is another economic report. Philadelphia's Fed manufacturing gauge falls to lowest reading in 2 years. The Philadelphia Fed said Thursday its gauge of regional manufacturing activity dropped sharply to 2.6 in May from 17.6 in the prior month. What? Interesting. So May's index of current activity slumps to 2.6 versus 15 that was expected. The numbers. Philadelphia Federal Reserve said Thursday its gauge of regional manufacturing fell sharply to 2.6. So there's no manufacturing in the region. This is the lowest level of activity since the recession in early 2020. Economists polled by the Wall Street Journal expected a 15 reading, so it should have. Let's see here. Is that right? Let's see. The barometer on new orders increased 4.3 points to 22.1. The shipments index jumped 16.2 points to 35.3, its highest level since last October. So there's a lot of stuff being shipped around, but no manufacturing. Okay. Interesting. What we're saying. We're much less happy, though, about the second straight drop in CapEx plans for the next 6 months to 9.6 from 19.9 in April and 24.8 in March. Wow. Okay. So no manufacturing, but things are being shipped around. Let's continue on. Got to keep moving. Only have an hour again with you all. So I hope you swing by and show me that you think that this is of value. You got to let me know. It's fun for me to do this, but if nobody's interested in it, I'll have to make a decision. McDonald's to sell Russian business to existing Siberian licensee. This is in the Hedge Ideas channel. McDonald's said Thursday it has struck a deal to sell its Russian business to current licensee in the market, Alexander Gover. So this article is over at CNBC, and it's written by Amelia Lucas, and it's kind of sort of what I expected, that it would be sold to somebody. I figured that them bowing out that had already been accounted for, so to speak, and that they were just going to bow out and let it be nationalized by the Putin administration. But apparently there is somebody there with enough money to, and I'm not surprised, to basically buy all of the McDonald's. So the sale is expected to close in the coming weeks. If it secures regulatory approval, it spells the end of an era of the fast food giant, which first entered the country just months before the Soviet Union was dissolved. McDonald's in Russia embodied the very notion of glasnost, and it took an outsized significance, says the CEO in a letter to the McDonald's system on Monday after the company announced its intent to sell. The company owned about 84% of the restaurants of 850 locations. Owning more of its restaurants generated greater revenue for the company, but opened it up to greater risk in times of turmoil or economic downturn. Invading Ukraine kind of is both. So increased its risk enough to that it just bowed out. I don't know what the deal would cost somebody. It doesn't really say. It says that McDonald's said Monday that it expects to record a non-cash charge of $1.2 billion to $1.4 billion related to its net investment in Russian and foreign currency losses. So it's taken a beating. So let's continue on. The next article is over in the Mobile channel. George W. Bush condemns unjustified and morning, Brill. George W. Bush condemns unjustified and brutal invasion of Iraq in speech mix-up, which is kind of interesting because that's the name that he decided to throw around after doing an unjustified and brutal invasion of Iraq. And I'm sure I'm not going to win any fans by making a statement like that, but yeah, we could have done what we did using a different set of tactics and forces and not just roll into some other country and obliterate so much and end up with so much loss of life and any type of war, any type of conflict where you're just launching uh, bombs and destroying buildings doesn't win friends. It doesn't fix anything. Nobody is ever met with hugs and bubbles because you invade their country. Um, and it all it really did was transfer wealth to the various contractors that were directly tied to Bush. And there's research that documents this. So I'm not too concerned about any of that. But it's in somebody's psyche when they start spitting out a sentence. The result, this is the sentence. The result is an absence of checks and balances in Russia, and the decision is one man to launch a wholly unjustified and brutal invasion of. Let me rephrase this. Let me restate this so that it's abundantly clear how this was said. The result is an absence of checks and balances in Russia, and the decision of one man to launch a wholly unjustified and brutal invasion of Iraq, Bush said in Dallas. This is when he said he was giving a speech. And then he says, of Ukraine. And then he said after that, and it's not written in this little snippet, basically, he said something along the lines of, give me a break, I'm 75. And when I heard that, I basically said, okay, maybe politicians need to have an age cap, but then suddenly you're ageist, and age is a protected class. You can't fire somebody because of their age. And so there's this whole sociological machinations there that I'm when I have conversations like this with other people and not on the stream, I get blowback for making that kind of a statement. But the reality is, this was in his head. This was in the lexicon. This was in his psyche, where that's what he blurted out, because he heard, and the same thing applies to the invasion of Iraq. The people that flew into the Twin Towers in the United States weren't from Iraq or Afghanistan. And it's really hard to justify wiping out an entire country with what amounts to an orbital bombardment, and you have nothing to show for it at the end of the day, except you've bred a whole lot more bad blood and created a bunch of enemies. So this is just because he sleeps at night worrying about that, and he has spent a lot of his time trying to get his soul back. And that's where it is. And then he says the former president shrugged it off. Of course he is, because sociopathy does shrug things off like that. So this is an article over at The Hill, and it's written by Natalie Priebe. So, Brildane, you're in my chat. What's going on? Anything interesting and exciting? Or are you having a nice chill day? Are you about to stream? So this is an article over at The Hill, and if you want to know more about it, because what I've said is basically what had transpired. And this is the kind of the funny thing, that he says, I'm 75, he said, prompting laughter from the audience. Yeah, probably nervous laughter, like, oh my gosh, there's a lot of 75-year-olds in government. Yeah. Anyway, I'll give you a break when you stop influencing politics. Let's continue on to the next article. Trying to open your eyes. And you came in here. I'm probably going to put you to sleep. Getting ready for the job. One of at least two, right? Because you're streaming all the time, too. This next article is over in Warcrafters. If you've not played V Rising, let me tell you, it's a blast. It's a blast. I think I'm going to be streaming that this weekend after my show. And maybe tomorrow I'll start around 3:30, and I'll just keep on playing it. the problem that I have with V Rising is it's okay. So the title of this article that was aggregated into Warcrafters is V Rising is more than Valheim with vampires. And yes, that's so true. It's a completely different kind of thing. But so let me just read this little snippet. V Rising slinked out of its coffin into early access this week, joining the survival game ranks and the top of the Steam bestsellers list. The comparisons with Valheim were instantaneous and not entirely unwarranted. Both are novel early access survival romps, boasting plenty of distinct twists that had great launches, but they also approach survival from very different angles. So, how is it warranted? Um, it is not like Valheim, other than maybe its isometric perspective. The base building is a lot easier in V Rising. The resolution of it, the way that it displays things, is wholly different. Um, Valheim has some um, really interesting processes in its rendering engine. And I agree, Brildan. It didn't seem like Valheim at all to me either. And the idea behind V Rising um, is basically you have the ability to build a cohort of vampires, and you can battle it out for each other's castles, and wipe them out. Essentially, wipe them out. But you're really battling against the human component that is in this massive map, and it's an amazingly large map. And I can't get deep enough into it because if you're on a PvP world, you're going to get ganked all the time. And if you're in a PvE world, you're not doing PvP. So you lose a lot of that conflict, but you become co op. And I'm more of a PvE environment kind of player. And to do what you need to do in the PvE side solo is kind of grindy. And so it brushed up really quick against my threshold. And so I need an external motivator to keep moving forward in it. So I'm really early in my playing of V Rising. And I think what I'm going to end up doing is streaming it while I'm doing it. And just hanging out. And if people show up, people show up. But I'd love to do PvE with a group of people. And I know a couple other streamers are going to set up a server, so I might play on that server. At least there's some more people that are working together to an end of some kind. And I don't even know what the end game of this is, but it's a lot of fun to watch people play, and it's a lot of fun to play solo. That said, let's scroll down. My aggregator grabs a lot of this source's article. I'll have to look into it. I think I keep saying that, but I don't fix it. The article comes from PC Gamer, so let's go over there. And like I said at the beginning of the stream, give credit where credit is due. Fraser Brown is the author of this over at PC Gamer, and they always have a little snippet, and it says V Rising is more than Valheim with vampires, but they're both adept at keeping me playing until dawn. Har har, because vampires dawn. Yeah, okay. Go home, Dad. You're drunk. Anyway, despite Valheim's escalating invasions and massive bosses, it's a fairly relaxing experience if you want to be there, where you can just potter around with your mates and construct a cozy Viking town. And that's kind of like V Rising. But that's any base building experience. It doesn't have to be hyperkinetic, go, go, go. There are plenty of games that are like that, but are light on the base building side typically. But I think V Rising and Valheim both have base building as a great motivator to stay engaged in the game. I'm not going to play their videos. I don't do that. Um, but V Rising has a great mechanic in that you get to be a vampire and you have to worry about the daylight. I saw a bug yesterday, which is probably going to get fixed pretty fast because they keep pumping out some updates since it went early access. I think I've counted 4 updates in rapid succession. But there was a daylight bug where you could be inside your castle and daylight would still strike through and kill you. That was a bit unsettling. Um, let's see if there's anything else in this article that really, because this article goes pretty deep into it. So this must be their review of the game itself, not just a cursory look at it. So instead of me reading through the entire article while you're here on the stream, and it doesn't make for a great podcast, let me tell you, to just hear silence and every once in a while me take a breath. I'm going to continue on, but I'm going to encourage you to go over to PC Gamer and read more of this review of V Rising. In fact, it's $20 over on Steam, so just go buy it. And maybe I'll set up an ohmTown server, and if you're interested in it, and we can all play together. And when you're not playing on ohmTown, I'm sure there are others that are going to be spinning up a server. I think Dunkstar said that he was going to spin up a server as well, Dunkstar and Timeless. Yeah. Okay. So let me continue on. The next article is over in the Stock Marketeers. Are you awake yet, Building? Billionaires are bleeding. Elon Musk, Jeff Bezos, and other top earners have lost nearly $200 billion in 2022. Oh, I don't have a lighter. Let's have a moment of silence for the $200 billion lost in 2022 so far for the billionaires, which I say are the reason why we have inflation, because everybody is aspiring to be a billionaire. And in doing so, everybody is requiring their profit margin to stay the same, even though we're trending towards recession and have inflation and everything is more expensive from raw materials all the way up. I say it's because of fuel, and it's because of people that have the means to take the hit are making everybody else take the hit. Because when you get irrationally disengaged from society with billions of dollars, you suddenly stop being a human being. Maybe that's not true for everybody, but, well, when I have to pay $50 to fill up my tank, it hurts a whole lot more than if Elon Musk does. And everybody, all of these billionaires, very rarely are you going to find a billionaire that didn't already come from money and have the means to take these risks that turned into multi-billion-dollar or trillion-dollar businesses. It's quite fascinating. And that is actually psychologically sound, sociologically sound. Yeah. So we have record profits in these companies, yet all of the raw materials that they are saying that they have to pay more for is supposed to be costing them more, but they have record profits. They raise the prices, they keep their margins. The average CEO of the top performing CEOs, the average pay is $15 million a year. It's wildly out of touch. So somebody losing $200 billion. And then when you compare the stock market to the GDP of the United States, you have some really outlandish valuations where it outstrips the GDP by orders of magnitude. Not just, oh, it's double the GDP. It's well beyond the valuation of the stock markets is well beyond the GDP of the United States. So all of this future looking has to be capitalized. So if people start selling their billions, where is all that money coming from? It doesn't really exist. It's paper. It's imaginary numbers on a digital register that says this is how much you're worth. And it's so convoluted when you start having to put all of the puzzle pieces together. So let's go over and click on this link. It's over at MarketWatch, and it's written by Barbara Kohlmeier. And yeah, all of these poor billionaires, we better start up a fund. Let's go and help them. Start donating money so that they can drive another $1 billion yacht around somewhere. Musk shed $12.3 billion of his personal fortune now, as the Dow Jones Industrial Average and S&P saw their worst 2 days in 2 years. Oh, gosh. I don't know what to... Yeah, so it says here, dry those crocodile tears, though, as Musk is still worth $210 billion, even if he lost $60.4 billion so far this year. Yeah, and that $210 billion is making more money than the loan that's leveraged against it. So even if he had $210 billion in cash, he's got a 500, and I don't know the facts of this. I don't know. But if you have $210 billion in cash, you could get $600 billion worth of loans at maybe 1%, invest it copiously all throughout the markets and make 6% on it, and you're making 5% margin, even though you're paying that 1%. And you're paying back the original 200 and whatever billion dollar loan, but you're making billions hand over fist. It's wild. And you and I can't do that. Average Joes can't do that. You can't go to the bank and say, hey, I've got $50,000 in my bank account. Har har. Good luck with that. Hey, I'd like to get a loan for $250,000. You can use my $50,000 as leverage, and I'm going to invest my other $250,000 loan. Thank you very much. That's not how it works, but it works when you're a billionaire. So let's keep on going. Billionaires are hurting, so keep an eye out for them. You might have to give them a cheeseburger. The next article is over in the Law Nerd category, or channel, sorry. Texas judge admonished after he erupts in anger, curses at lawyer, and concludes, I may not be suitable for this. Pardon me one second. A Houston judge has been admonished after losing his temper during a trial, cursing at one of the lawyers in his chambers, and then suggesting that it may not be suitable for this. So let's click this link. It takes us over to the ABA Journal and an article by Deborah Cassens-Weiss. Let's see here. Judge Wells expressed irritation at both sides' lawyers, including slamming a book on the bench, erupting in anger, using a harsh and sarcastic tone of voice, abruptly announcing recesses, and walking off the bench in frustration and anger. So he basically rage quit and flipped his bench. I love stuff like this because it lets me know that I'm not the only one that's like right there. A lot of us are on the verge when we're paying way too much attention than we should to the world. Sometimes you just want to flip the desk. Anyway, I thought that this was really funny. So then we could have rolled around on the floor and strangled each other, he reportedly said. So then he says to the Houston Chronicle, I made a mistake and I'm not hiding from that. My behavior was not acceptable. The judge is human. But you don't have to worry about that judge, right? Because he's got a salary and he's not a billionaire that's just lost billions of dollars. Okay, so the next article, let's keep on rolling. Only a few more to go. Then you can go back to sleep, Brildy. The next article is in the Hatch Ideas channel. Ford owners Ford tells owners of 39,000 SUVs to park outside after 16 vehicles caught fire. So this actually follows on a series of these things. Well, I'll speak softly. I know you're trying to get ready for work building. Oh, you have to walk to work. Now, if you fall asleep, you can sleepwalk to work. And really, I could do some ASMR. Would you like that? Here, I'll do some. My microphone is right here. So should I talk really softly to the microphone and lull you back to sleep? Or should I start playing sound effects? And none of that's a good idea. Okay. I'll stick to what I was doing then. I may not be cut out for this either. The company is aware of 16 vehicle fires, 14 of which involved rental cars, according to. Oh, wow. So it's only rental cars. It's mostly rental cars, 14 of which involved rental cars, according to the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration. That's here in the States, by the way. Most of the fires happened in vehicles that were parked and switched off, but some drivers reported smelling smoke coming from the engine while driving. Nice. You don't want to get back to sleep. Should I speak loudly? I can do editing in post that will lower the volume for everybody else, but I can wake you up in my stream. Breldane, wake up. Get ready for work. Okay, so if you own a Ford SUV, you might want to talk to the shop to find out if you're part of this notice, because your car might just combust. And I actually did a story a couple of months ago when I first started this about another manufacturer's cars, and I can't remember who it was. Was it Kia? I think it might have been Kia. Their cars were setting themselves on fire too. So I don't know. Inflation causes things to happen. Maybe the cars just can't take it, and they're like, "That's it. I'm out of here." Anyway, this article is over at businessinsider.com by Tim Levin. Or Levine, I don't know. Could be Levine, Levin. I don't know. Anyway, Ford advised owners of 2021 Lincoln Navigators and Ford Expeditions to park outside. It's so matter of fact. I told somebody the other day that I went and saw my doctor, and my doctor said, "Sorry, Mayor Watt, your warranty is up." And everybody that was in the chat that I said this to was like, "Wow, you need a different doctor." Yeah, if a manufacturer tells me to park my car outside because it might combust, maybe they should just replace the vehicle, because I wouldn't trust it anymore. I don't even trust my car after it's been involved in an accident. Like I got rear-ended once, and it took them something like 6 months to repair my car because the frame was bent and they had to take it all apart, and then they tore the frame trying to straighten it and blah, blah, blah. Anyway, never trusted the vehicle ever from that point forward. I always felt like I was going to hit the brakes and the top of the car was just going to slide right off the frame. Oh no, one of your mods DM'd you to tell you that their car caught fire in their garage just yesterday. Was it one of these? Wow. And where are they? So the company said around 39,000 vehicles might be affected. Huh, that's interesting. You'll have to find out. Let me know, because maybe, maybe I did a good deed by announcing it to everybody. I'm sure Business Insider did just fine on their own, but the company's aware of 16 vehicle fires. That is wild. Oh, see, there it is. They talk about what I was talking about earlier. In February, Kia and Hyundai recommended that nearly 500,000 of their customers park their cars outside due to braking system defect that could lead to fires. You have to talk nice to your car, everybody. Otherwise, it will spontaneously combust. Treat it nice. Let it get some sun. Get some oxygen. Can't be cramped up in those garages. take it for walks. It has to go pedal. Okay, let's go on to the next article. And my favorite manufacturer of adapters and chargers. So Anker says its new USB-C hub lets M1 MacBooks output to 3 external monitors. Anker has announced that its new $250 10-in-1 USB-C hub, that among other things allows M1 equipped MacBook to output to 3 external displays. Yay! It's designed to overcome a key limitation in Apple's M1 powered MacBooks, which by default can only output to a single external monitor. The Anker 563 dock has a total of 10 ports, including USB-C, USB-A, 3.5 audio, and Ethernet. Wow, that's pretty neat. But we're most interested in the display connectors, which consist of an HDMI port that can go up to 4K at 30 hertz. I don't know why. And a second HDMI. So this is an article by John Porter over at The Verge. And wow, that's a tiny little dock. Let's see, a second HDMI port that can do 2K, aka 1440 at up to 60 hertz, and a display port that's also capable of 2K at 60 hertz. Neat. Yeah, I'm all over this. I have a MacBook that I rarely use nowadays. Yeah, a single monitor. Yeah, it used to only. I mean, you could use your laptop, the MacBook M1's display as your second monitor, but it would only output to one. Not enough power. So now it says competing accessory manufacturers Hyper announced a pair of USB-C docks last year designed to run 2 displays off an M1 MacBook. Woo woo. But really, if you're not using at least 2 monitors, you aren't as productive as you can be. And like every system that I've ever used now in the last 15 years, I'd say I have 3 monitors, except for my rig here, which is 5 monitors, because sometimes you have to compete with NASA, and I guess I like radiation therapy. I don't know. Anyway, you should always get a second monitor. If you're listening to me out there and you don't have 2 monitors, you're doing yourself a disservice. Particularly if you're a student or you're working at home or you're working for somebody anywhere where there's enough desk space for 2 monitors, get a second monitor. You'd be surprised how many people only use their laptop monitor, their laptop display, and that's it. And so they have to lean in really close and hunch over, and nope, do it right. Get a couple of 27-inch at least monitors and you'll be a very happy customer. Anyway, this is an awesome little dock, and it's from Anker, which to me is just awesome quality. And that's pretty much all that I use nowadays. I use those. We refer to them as wall warts here in the house, but power adapters, plug them into the outlet, and then you plug whatever USB-C or USB-A, whatever, into it. I buy all of mine from Anker, so I dig them. They're nice. Great quality. Okay, so let's continue on to the next article. This is in Smack Talk. Audi infotainment system gains Apple Music for nearly all 2022 cars. Audi has announced that Apple Music subscribers will be able to access the service directly from their car's own entertainment system for the majority of cars from 2022 onwards, including some already on the road. Audi has been supporting Apple's CarPlay since 2015, but it's now making Apple Music directly available through its own in-car systems, which is great because then I don't have to necessarily use my device. And I tend to compartmentalize my services and stuff, so if I can just log in here, awesome. If I have to use my phone, that's fine too. But Anyway, this is an article by William Gallagher over at Apple Insider, and there's really not much more to this. It's just Apple CarPlay and Apple Music expanding into Audi cars by default, which is always good. I mean, it's a huge market, so I'm not sure why it took so long to get there, but it is what it is. Apple integrating Apple Music into the audio infotainment system marks the next step in the collaboration between Audi and Apple, said Christian Zorn. Wow, that's like from Fifth Element. I know that it wasn't Zorn, but Audi's head of product marketing said in a statement, for our customers, it means that we're offering them direct access to their own personalized listening experience. Yay. Okay, so only 2 more articles. This one was really interesting to hear about, and then I found, as I was going through my news, I happened to find this being aggregated, and thought it was really interesting because I had heard from somebody else about this before just stumbling across it in my feeds. And so this can't be real. That's a quote. Grubhub promotion turns New York City restaurants into a war zone. Now, this is a whole lot of hyperbole, okay, both of these. Well, not this can't be real, but when I talk about it, you'll understand that it comes across as kind of hyperbolic. So that's what customers, restaurants, and delivery workers want to know after a surprise promotion by food delivery platform Grubhub went badly awry and proved there's really no such thing as a free lunch. So what is this supposed to answer? What were they thinking? Well, Grubhub said, we'll pay $15 for any order. And that turned into 6,000 orders being placed every minute in New York between 11 and 2 p.m. And let's click the link. So this is an article over at The Guardian. And it's written by William Chan. And basically one person showed up to their restaurant and started to open it, and there were already 40 orders there prior to the 11 o'clock time frame. And then it just kept on coming and going and going and going and going and going. And then there is another one where it basically, one person said this turned our kitchen into a war zone. So here it says Megan Benson, a worker at a fast casual chicken restaurant in Brooklyn, said the flood of orders created shortages that spilled over into dinner time, turning the kitchen into a war zone. That's, stuff flying around in a kitchen during the peak hours. It's not unheard of. It also led to the reason why I'll never go into food service, because I can't do that. I tried, but I've always had mad respect for anybody in food service. The restaurant is typically busy from the moment we open the door, and nobody told us about this free lunch thing. Normally it's tight ship in here, and we couldn't keep up. We had no time to restock anything, so half the stuff was missing or sold out. The phone wouldn't stop ringing because people were calling mad as hell to tell us that there were missing items or that they just never got their food picked up, and so the Grubhub delivery guys would have to keep coming back. Well, that's a planning thing, so I'll just leave that there. But Grubhub didn't warn anybody, apparently, so it just went pure chaos. The delays meant Benson had to stay well past midnight to clean up, and she finally got home at 3:30 a.m. I just hope we get overtime pay for this. Yeah, probably. Some places probably not, but when you're getting that many orders, you're keeping the business on the map. Let's see. By 5 p.m., Brailsford still didn't have any food. She watched an estimated arrival change to 8 p.m. they get a little colorful in their statement here. So it took a lot longer than 45 minutes, apparently, and they said that it would arrive by 3-ish, still hadn't arrived by 5 p.m. Yeah, I would have probably done something else. Waiting for $15 worth of food for 3, 4, or 5 hours, it isn't worth it to me. So, interesting. Another worker, Maurice Jameson, said he pulled in $300 across breakfast, lunch, and dinner. Huh. Yeah. It's not necessarily a good thing to have something like a special when people aren't prepared for it. That's why it should have been announced on the back end a whole lot sooner so that people could prepare. But then it would have gotten leaked, and who knows, maybe it would have been even more overwhelming. And just so you know, there is a lot more in this article. So go over and read the rest of it at theguardian.com. Okay, so this last one is kind of neat. I don't know if you've ever heard of the Framework laptop, but it's a modular laptop that you can upgrade and change what it's capable of doing. And it says, we are fans, the author of this is over at Ars Technica. So they say, we are fans of the Framework laptop when we reviewed it last year. It was partly because of its modular design prioritizes repairability and upgradability when others don't. And it's really neat. Basically, it has these little sockets in it where you can take the modules out and put different modules in if you have some other purpose for it. At the end of the day, it's a really neat idea. An upgradable laptop is only worthwhile if you can actually upgrade it, though, and Framework is making that possible starting today. The company is introducing a new iteration of the Framework laptop's motherboard that uses 12th gen Intel CPUs. A brand new 12th gen Framework laptop starts at $1,000 for a Core i5. Not bad. Or $810 for a build-it-yourself kit with no memory or storage, and that's usually the case. But depending on what they offer straight built, then maybe let them put the memory and storage in. You can always upgrade it later. But it's a really neat laptop. I really like it. And for it to be upgrading to the 12th gen CPUs, it's keeping current, which is rare for a well-priced laptop. This is an article over at Ars Technica by Andrew Cunningham. And it looks really close to a MacBook Pro, like an older generation MacBook Pro. But you can swap out these little modules. Pretty neat. Let's see if there's anything. Yeah, and when you take it apart, there's barcodes all over the place and little instructions like this is where this goes, this is where that goes. And it lets you know what's memory and what's storage and what's a battery pack. And you can just pull it out and then get a new one if it goes bad. Oddly enough, I've never had a laptop battery go bad, so maybe I swap my stuff out too fast. I typically use it for a year or two and then I sell it and get the next iteration of it. But I haven't done that in the last, I don't know, maybe 3 years now. The 11th generation version of the laptop, of the Framework laptop, is also sticking around as an entry-level option until it sells out, and it's starting at $679 for a Core i5. I don't know, an 11th gen is pretty good. I don't know about the i5 though. If you do any multitasking, you'll want an i7, even an i3, but not the i5. And $899 for an assembled system. It's not bad. Plus, you can always swap out the modules. Okay. So go check it out. Go over to Ars Technica, read that article from Andrew Cunningham. Modular, do-it-yourself friendly Framework laptop gets updated with 12th gen Intel CPUs. And it also gets structural upgrades and an optional 2.5 gigabit LAN module. Neat. Okay. And like every episode of the ohmTown Daily News Show, take you back to the front page. Refresh that front page, just like as if you're going to the website yourself. And there you go. A whole bunch of articles, page after page. I'm still working on the pagination thing. It looks a little funky down there. And I'm working on the accessing, allowing you guys to access the various policies. Again, I'm being pulled in too many directions, but I would love to stay and stream longer. But that's all up to listeners and viewers. Come over to Twitch, click on follow. Let me know you're interested in this kind of stuff. I still haven't hit my goal. And we're tomorrow will be 140 episodes. But again, I'm not out there really hyping it up. I'm not doing any advertising. I'm not doing anything really wild and crazy. I'm not doing a hot tub stream or a pool stream, and I wouldn't look good in a bikini. I don't know. I just want to hang out and talk about the news and play some games with y'all. So come on down, come over to ohmTown, become a citizen, go to ohmTown.com. Don't forget about podcast, YouTube, Discord, but there's nobody on Discord because I don't really talk about it or even link it in my chat. If I practiced what I preach to people, I would probably be doing better at this, but I don't because I'm trying to just have fun and not make it work. But maybe it needs to be work. Okay. Stay awesome. See you tomorrow. Hopefully, I can't do it at 1 o'clock. I've got a meeting. Can't do it in the morning. I've got meetings all the way until 1 o'clock with a pending 3 o'clock appointment, a meeting as well. Everything is right here in ohmTown, though, so I don't have to go anywhere. Let's see if I won't be able to cram it in. Tomorrow's going to be another late stream like this, so stick around. Wait for the alert. I don't know. Come and hang out with me, though. I'll see you tomorrow. Bye-bye.